Japan is officially getting support from international heroes, Midoriya falls as he succumbs to his limit, and we finally get to see the highly anticipated return of a fan-favorite classmate. Let's talk about all of this and more as we dive right into the newest chapter of My Hero Academia. So My Hero Academia Chapter 318 is finally out, and with it we see Midoriya push himself to his limit, for real this time, taking down villains on his tour of vengeance as the badass monster of Hero Society. I mean, come on, you can't tell me this ain't some horror movie material right here. He looks absolutely terrifying. Bakugo wasn't even allowed to call himself Lord Explosion Murder, and Midoriya is out here looking like he's gonna steal your girl, take her out for a nice meal, and then eat her and your entire family. Shit looks crazy. In this chapter we get introduced to a new Tartarus inmate who is working for All For One. We learn all of the previous users' thoughts on Midoriya's current mental health, and an old friend hops onto the scene to bring back Class 1A's problem child. But before I begin talking about this chapter, I'm first going to go into a quick summary of what happened last time. And as usual, don't forget to Detroit smash that like button and slide into that subscribe button's DMs to hit that notification bell. In the last chapter, after the pro heroes came down with a serious case of explosions, they decided it's high time to hit the beach. But it being the middle of the night, they settled with the next best thing, an old dusty warehouse by the docks. Here, they discussed the current state of their situation. They lost their only lead on the League of Villains and All For One, with the rampant retirement of pro heroes such as Dead Arms, RIP you will be missed, guy whose name I didn't know until the last chapter. They don't have anywhere near enough manpower to even begin searching for the League, and their only hope in this fight for the fate of the world lies in a teenage boy who only got his superpower 1 year ago, and is the #1 target for the world's oldest and most powerful supervillain. So yeah, they are obviously super bummed out, and they take a moment of silence to bathe in just how absolutely screwed they really are. In the midst of this silence, Endeavor receives a call from his favorite offspring, Shoto, wondering when they are going to go take down Endeavor's ex-favorite child, Toya, aka Dabi. But Endeavor simply ignores this call as he is too busy brooding. Immediately after this, Hawks receives a call from All Might, who informs the chicken-winged hero that the man of the hour Midoriya is after taking down another assassin, and this time he didn't even have to learn their tragic and heartbreaking backstory. After tying up the villain, Midoriya jumps past his idol and denies his offer of a bento box. What a monster! Midoriya, seemingly going through that phase of puberty, explains to All Might that he is too cool for the old fart now, and that All Might isn't even his real dad anyway, so he should just leave him alone. Just kidding, in reality it's quite a heartbreaking scene where Midoriya, not wanting his idol, mentor and father figure to risk getting hurt, abandons him and goes off on his own, leaving both parties involved emotionally devastated in an act Midoriya believes to be for the greater good. It's then revealed that ominously eavesdropping on this moment is the hero killer Stain, who, in classic Stain fashion, holds out his tongue like an influencer desperate for likes. And with this, we see the end of chapter 317 as we are left with this terrifying image of Midoriya wandering through the streets as the text reads, "Look at him, you'd never guess, he was a hero." And this is where chapter 318 picks up. This chapter opens up exactly where the last chapter left off, with a shot of Endeavor on the phone with Midoriya, who is in the midst of jumping away from the one-time symbol of peace, All Might. It still hurts to see. Endeavor tells Midoriya that there has been a change of plans, as they have got confirmation that heroes from outside Japan will be coming into the country to assist them soon. That's right, heroes from all over the globe will be joining in on this crusade to take down All For One. Now, I actually really like this idea of seeing foreign heroes in the main series. Not only is it a great way of introducing some new heroes with new powers, because God knows they'll need some more heroes to take down the League and the Nomus as it stands, but it could also be used as a nice little nod to the existence of My Hero content outside of the main series, such as My Hero Academia Vigilantes and the My Hero movies. Hell, the next movie coming out is literally called World Heroes Mission, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some familiar faces from the movie make an appearance in the main series. Although the real tie-in character I want to see is Captain Celebrity. Now that would be awesome. But anyway, as this conversation continues, Endeavor tells Midoriya that he needs to slow down and take a break, because he is the key to this whole operation. And if he falls now, all hope will be lost. Hearing this, Midoriya simply shrugs off the fiery bad dad's concerns, telling Endeavor not to worry, because he can still move, and that they can't give the villains any time to prepare. It's also interesting to note that as Midoriya says this, we get this shot of him here where he looks almost identical to Kurogiri and High End, which is a fantastic first visual indication that Midoriya is turning into a mere husk of his former self. After this, Midoriya's conversation with Endeavor ends, and the next shot we see is Midoriya slouched, trudging through the city streets, looking a lot more like a monster than a human, with the vestiges of the previous One For All users floating behind him, begging him to get some rest as he hasn't fully healed. But before the now horrific green bunny gremlin looking protagonist can respond, his danger sense quirk activates, and in response, he instinctively turns around and leaps through the previous user's vestiges to head towards the danger. Now that's cold. But it's also another great example of Midoriya not really being himself, disrespecting and disregarding the heroes who died in order to create the power he now wields. With this, the story then cuts to inside of One For All, where we see all of the previous users, the second and third now included, at their respective chairs discussing Midoriya's current situation. Nana Shimura worries that her words may have become a burden too strong for Midoriya to handle, but Daijiro Banjo tells her that she need not worry, as Midoriya has always had this "he must save everyone" mentality. Hikage Shinomori then chimes in too, saying that for better or for worse, awakening all of the previous users' quirks has merely just become a means to an end for the green-haired successor. The second user then interrupts this conversation, informing everyone that the current path Midoriya is on is the right one, and that he shouldn't be allowed to stop, especially in a situation as dire as the one they're currently in. The second user explains that this unrelenting and tireless drive to keep pushing forward is what it truly takes to carry the weight of all of their wills and to be a wielder of One For All. Now, I want to quickly mention that I love the little detail that unlike all of the other users who are sitting in their chairs, the second user is standing beside his. It's a nice visual indicator that 1, he is still hesitant about helping Midoriya, which might also explain why Midoriya hasn't used his quirk yet, and 2, how his opinions differ from that of the group's. And so, while he's still a part of the conversation, he's not quite as involved or on the same level as the rest. However, the second user does finish off his speech saying that perhaps there is something we could do to protect Izuku Midoriya. But before he can elaborate, the story cuts away, right back on over to Midoriya, who is in the middle of fighting off a bunch of small fry villains, as Lord Bakugo would call them, in order to save some civilians. After taking down all of the cannon fodder, Midoriya asks the bystanders if they are okay, but they are completely terrified of Midoriya's new look, believing him to be one of All For One's underlings. Midoriya quickly explains that he is most certainly not a servant of All For One, but unfortunately the citizens don't want to take any chances and they run away from our hero, shouting back that everything's okay. Immediately after this, danger sense kicks in once again and Midoriya rushes off towards the danger once more. While soaring through the skies, Midoriya wonders about Shigaraki and the League's whereabouts. He thinks to himself how he won't let anyone lay a finger on any of his friends ever again, and also how he just needs to fully master One For All, clarifying that he hasn't reached non-pseudo 100% so that the world won't have to live in fear any longer. And with this speech, we get a montage of Midoriya battling numerous different villains and saving civilians, intercut with pictures of his mother, mentors, Eri, and friends, all smiling, culminating with this image of all of Class 1A as Midoriya thinks to himself, so I can smile with all of them again. God damn it, Horikoshi, you really are getting me in the fields. Why can't we go back to the Christmas party? Everyone was fine and happy then. Hell, even the villains were happy. Following this speech, we see Midoriya arrive at Kamino's ground zero, where upon landing, he falls onto his hands and knees due to exhaustion right in front of All Might's statue. Kind of ironic how he lands broken in front of the symbol he technically abandoned just a few moments ago. As Midoriya tries to catch his breath, he is greeted by a Tartarus jailbreaker and All For One's newest hitman, Dictator, who I believe is supposed to be this guy right here. Dictator reveals that Midoriya is acting exactly how All For One predicted, acting reckless out of impatience and currently wishing for solitude while on the brink of exhaustion. Midoriya, with what little strength he has left, attempts to stand up and face the villain, but being pushed to his absolute limit, he barely manages to stand upright, struggling to even ask Dictator if he knows where All For One is hiding. In the entirety of My Hero, we have never seen Midoriya in a state like this. He legitimately is struggling to keep himself up, and when threatening the villain, he fails to even raise his hand. It's honestly quite shocking to see, but it's fantastic to witness the actual consequences of Midoriya's actions. This time, he has truly reached his limit, and there is no BS like breaking bones that are already broken. Although I gotta say, I do adore that fight. Seeing Midoriya attempting to get into a fighting pose, Dictator accepts the young hero's challenge, and he activates his quirk, which allows him to control people like puppets, and he sends a horde of innocent civilians who are screaming at Midoriya that they can't control their own bodies to take down the broken hero. Midoriya, seeing the group of bystanders charging at him, remembers that Dictator's quirk can be negated if the victims receive a large enough shock or if the wielder is knocked out. Unfortunately for Midoriya, he can't hit any of the civilians without injuring them, and Dictator has surrounded himself with a meat shield of bodies to prevent a full power attack. With no way of beating the villain and no energy left to even move, in an absolutely tragic and terrifying turn of events, Midoriya succumbs to the darkness, standing still, letting himself get swarmed by the mob of puppets. As the angry horde begins to rip and tear at Midoriya, his mask gets taken off, and it's here where we see the devastating image of Midoriya's lifeless and defeated eyes. The once hopeful and starry-eyed kid has fully become a husk of his former self, and one of the last shots we see of Midoriya is him being fully overpowered by his opponents as he repeats the words in his head, "Don't worry, I will think of a solution." God, this series got dark. However, while all hope seems lost and Midoriya seems to be defeated, a new beacon of hope appears as the king of Class 1A, the fan favorite, Mr. Dynamite Lord Explosion Murder himself, Katsuki Bakugo, explodes onto the scene, shooting an AP shot directly at Dictator's head, somehow not killing him, as the second user's words echo, "If only there was something we could do to protect Izuku Midoriya." And chapter 318 ends with this beautiful shot of Explosion Boy flying through the air, talking on his phone saying, "Guys, I found him. The boys are back together, baby! Woo!" Overall, this was another fantastic chapter. International pro heroes joining in the fight against All For One is most certainly a surprise, but a welcomed one at that. I'm curious to see just who exactly they will bring in, and if they will actually be of importance to the overall narrative. Throughout this whole chapter, Midoriya looked like some outer-worldly monstrous creature, which I thought was a terrific way of showing us just how far down the rabbit hole he has gone. I mean, look at these shots here. He looks so monstrous and evil that if you didn't know who it was, you honestly couldn't tell if it was a good or a bad guy. Plus, the use of dozens of lines in his extremely battered yet detailed design contrasted against the simple, smooth and clean look of every other character really emphasizes how out of place and out of character he is in this world. Although I will say, this design is one of the coolest looks in the entire series. Midoriya ignoring and jumping through the previous users was another wonderful moment, and Shinomori saying that they are just tools to him now is an instant sign that the Midoriya we are seeing isn't the one we all know and love. The heartbreaking revelation that Midoriya's main motivation is to be able to smile with his friends again was a tremendous addition to add in, and I'm so happy they gave him more motivation than he is just doing good to do good. The fact that he doesn't just want to see his friends smile, but he wants to smile with them makes this an extremely personal vendetta and helps to make Midoriya's determination feel more real. At the end of the day, he's just a kid who wants to enjoy life with his friends, which, to make it even more depressing, are the first friends he has ever had, which he only made 1 year ago. Midoriya falling and actually suffering the consequences of his actions was awesome to see as well. I was really getting worried about Midoriya's character turning into a super Gary Stu, but in the past few chapters, with his inner conflicts and his failure to surpass his own inner demons, I think Horikoshi might have thankfully saved the character, for now at least. But let me know what you think of this chapter. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and comment what you think is going to happen next. For more My Hero content, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra!